So, what is being your best and why is it so important? Being your best means reaching your full potential as a human being, emotionally, mentally, physically, and of course, spiritually. It means exploiting and using all of the talents that have been given to you. It's about being the best possible version of yourself, both inside and out. It's about being able to look back upon your life and saying, yep, I really did try my absolute best at life and I gave it all I had. No regrets. Now, there are several reasons why it is important to be your best. The first being to live your best life. The one thing that all of us have in common is that we all want to be healthy and happy, right? Essentially, to live our best life. And so if we want to live our best life, as opposed to just a mediocre one, then it makes sense that we should do everything to the best of our ability. The more we try our best in life, including all of our roles and in things such as our relationships and our work and everything else in between, then the better our lives become. Next, we have a responsibility to be our best. Whilst not all of us see it this way, life is a gift. That is, you are truly blessed to be here on earth to experience life as a human being at this time. And as such, every moment is precious and should be respected. And the best way to pay respect to this or pay back this gift of life itself is by being your best in each and every moment. In fact, not only is doing this a respectful thing to do, but it's also an essential thing to do if we are to make the world a better place to live. Just think about it. If none of us gave a crap about being our best, then the world would totally suck, right? I mean, your kids wouldn't be engaged at school and even learn much because the teachers would just be doing what they have to do. Go to work only to have work colleagues, sledging each other instead of acting with tact. And you'd go to the movies only to be disappointed with the acting. And you'd go to a restaurant only to receive a sub-average meal that you could have probably made better at home just because the chef didn't really care. And so in this way, being our best isn't only integral to everything we do, but rather a personal responsibility we each have. That is, we each have a duty to strive to be our best and to make the world a better place to live. And this is so important because we all want to live in a world which is fair and just. A world in which there is lots of love and little fear. A world which is mostly positive instead of negative. A world in which we have freedom rather than restraint. A world which is inclusive rather than exclusive. A world which is based on truth and integrity rather than lies and corruption. A world where there is equality of race and gender without discrimination. A world where there is abundant wealth for all to share without crime and poverty. A world which is a good and happy place to be. And a world in which is conducive to balance and well-being rather than one which takes us further away from it. And so the only way we can heal or achieve this world and make it a better place is by being our best each and every day. In fact, the Japanese even have a word for this, kaizen, which is about having the self-discipline to improve yourself to better serve the collective good. And I'm not sure about you, but I want to do everything in my power to leave this world in a better shape than I found it. And I do so by doing everything to the best of my ability each and every day. And what I've also found is that as you become the best version of yourself, you also indirectly encourage others around you to do the same. And this is why we attracted more to people who have a positive and who have a higher energy rather than people who are negative and who have a lower energy. I've always said that if you want to help others to make positive lifestyle changes in their own lives, then the best way to do so is to become the change you want to see. In other words, become a role model for them. In fact, there is no greater catalyst for change than being a shining example of what's possible. And that's because when you are your best, you allow and empower others to do the same. Okay, so the next reason why it's important to be your best is because the reality is that you only get one chance at life. Sure, if you believe in reincarnation, then you also believe that you'll come back again and again. However, even if this is the case, which I too believe is so, then you will still never get the same unique opportunity again to be in the world on this planet with the same people at the same time in history again. And as I said previously, life is precious, but life is also short too. You know, when asked what is the biggest mistake we make in life, the Buddha replied, "You think you have time. Time is free, but it is priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once it's lost, you can never get it back." And so what I wish to say to you is that whilst you can't choose how you die, you can choose how you live. And being your best is about being proud of who you are and of how you have lived your life. As I mentioned earlier, it's about being able to look back upon your life and saying, yep, I really did try my absolute best at life and I gave it all I had. That you put yourself out there, that you were the best mum or dad or sister or brother, friend, employee or boss, or whatever other roles you've played, that you have achieved your full potential as a human being in every way, and as such, that you became the best possible version of yourself, both inside and out. This is so important because there is no heavier burden in life than a great potential. In other words, you don't want to be in a situation where you look back upon your life with regret. Regret for not fulfilling your deepest desires and for not living your dreams. Regret for not making the most of all of the opportunities bestowed upon you. Regret for not doing everything possible in your power to make a positive difference in the lives of your loved ones and the world at large. A life in which the many regrets cause you to die with a heavy and closed heart instead of a light and open one. And unfortunately, too often I coach or meet others who are in this very situation. People who, despite having an enormous potential for success, simply waste their lives away. People who, despite being largely unhealthy and or unhappy, very seldomly take the initiative to better themselves and their lives. Take something as simple as looking after and having your best body as a primary example. You know, part of doing so requires that we manage a healthy weight to avoid a whole host of associated diseases, yet 8 out of 10 of us are overweight or even obese. And so this is just one of the many ways in which I find that many of us are not being our best, which is very much why society and the world is the way it is. And so if you can relate to not being your absolute best self in any way, then it is essential that you become intentional and committed towards doing so if you are to live your healthiest and happiest life. Okay, so now that we know why it's so important to be your best, I'm going to discuss just a few of the ways in which we can go about doing so. And the first point I like to start with when it comes to being your best is getting out of your comfort zone. You know, Albert Einstein once said that a ship is safe at the shore, but that is not what it's built for. In much the same way, we too must step out of our comfort zone if we are to be our best and to live our best life. Sure, it's safe and comfortable to stay where we are, which is why most people never really step out of their comfort zone. But it's these same people who do so who are not really happy and who worry and even complain a lot, largely because they are not achieving much or moving forward with their lives. The same people who often never reach their full potential as a human being don't really make a big difference in the world and survive rather than thrive. And sure, stepping out of your comfort zone is scary, but it's not as scary as not stepping out of your comfort zone and never reaching your full potential, including living your healthiest and happiest life. And that's because everything great in life happens outside of your comfort zone. This is the place where the growth happens, where the solutions are, and where you feel fulfilled. So it's really important that you understand how to move beyond your comfort zone so that you can ensure that you are being your best self and living your best life. Because at the end of the day, life is about growth. I want to grow. I want to realize my capabilities. I want to reach my full potential in all areas of my life. In other words, be the best version of myself. And so should you too. Because if you're not growing, then you're dying. And I see this often in my coaching. People who, despite being still alive, actually died and stopped living a really long time ago. All because they didn't step out of their comfort zone and continue growing. So the next point I would like to discuss also follows on from what I've been talking about here, and that is to always ensure to aim high. You know, growing up, I lived on a large hill, and one of my favorite things to do was to fly my kite, which my neighbor, who was an engineer and an aviation enthusiast, helped me build. However, having never been satisfied with how high my kite would fly, I would often add more string to the kite with the dream of getting it to space. And whilst I didn't quite get there, I did manage to get the kite a few kilometers high to the point where it would disappear into the clouds, which I found totally ace. So why am I sharing this story? Well, I'm sharing it because I think that it's a great analogy for aiming higher in our lives. And so when it comes to being your best, it is really important to never limit the vision of the person you can become and what you can achieve. This includes who you are and what you know, because your greatest asset is you. You can never underestimate what you are capable of, because you can grow and learn how to do anything. Just as you are an infinite being, so is your learning. You just need to have confidence and believe in yourself. And confidence is simply the belief in yourself that you can work things out. If someone else can do it, so can you. Sure, it will take time and energy, as well as having goals and a plan to get there. But you can do anything you want to do. And it all starts with adopting a growth mindset. In fact, once you do, then fear and disappointment will disappear, because you will realize that it's just one more step, one more learning to get there. So remember to aim for the stars when it comes to the person you want to become and what you can achieve. It's how you not only reach your full potential in life and become the best version of yourself, but also how you change the world at large. And this takes me on to the next point of being your best, and that is to do the very best with what you've got. You know, growing up, my parents were farmers, which meant that we never really had a lot of money. But despite this, they still always managed to give us a great education, you know, put delicious warm meals on the table each night, and give us a place we were proud to call home. An upbringing I feel grateful and even privileged for having received. And it was all made possible because they always did the very best with what they had. In fact, my mum would always remind me of this growing up by her saying, you just always have to do the best with what you've got in life, Rob, and never make excuses for what you haven't. And you know what? She was right. Sometimes life hands us a lemon, and when it does, we can either choose to be bitter about it, or we can choose to make lemonade. Choosing to make lemonade means choosing to make the most out of a situation by finding the opportunity and the solutions that always exist, because there is always something we can do. And the moment you take responsibility for yourself and own it is the same moment you gain the power to change anything in your life. And whilst we definitely can't control everything in life, and nor should we can control the way we respond, and this is the key. It is only by taking responsibility for ourselves that we can begin to consciously co-create the life that we want instead of the one that we don't. Whether it's achieving a healthy weight, improving your physical and or mental health, building better relationships, or bettering yourself in any other way, it all starts with taking responsibility for your life and everything in it, and striving to do the best with what you've got and never making excuses. And this is important because it is so easy to become a victim in life, to feel overwhelmed and stop trying because it's all too hard, and to focus on what we don't rather than what we do have. Not only can doing so make us feel down and even unappreciative of all of the blessings in our life, but it can also easily discourage us from becoming our best self and living our best life. And so if you know that you can be better, which I know you can, then guess what? You have a responsibility to be better. With knowledge comes responsibility. So I'm holding you accountable to that. In saying that, however, this takes me onto the final point I want to talk about when it comes to being your best. And that is to ensure that you are not being too hard on yourself. And I say this because, sure, it's important to step out of your comfort zone, to aim high in life, to do the very best with what you've got. But at the same time, it's also important to ensure that you don't criticize yourself for the times in your life when you feel that you haven't been your best self. Because the reality is that there will always be periods in your life, whether it's days, months, or even years, that you probably feel that you haven't been your best. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay because life can be stressful, both in terms of the challenges of day-to-day living, such as looking after kids, commuting between work and home, work deadlines, putting healthy meals on a table, and so on. But also in terms of the more serious and largely unpredictable challenges of life too. Life is dynamic, not static, and there are always bumps in the road. And no one can ever really predict what will happen. Whether it's the breakdown of a marriage, bankruptcy, fighting serious illness, being a victim of domestic violence, losing a loved one, or anything else. Life can be really hard at times. And as a result, we each do what we need to do in order to better help not only ourselves, but also our loved ones cope and get through whatever it is we're going through. If it's for our own processing and healing, then sometimes this includes doing not very much at all. And that's okay, because sometimes there are periods in your life that you just need to do nothing, both physically and mentally, other than just be where you are. You know, some of us like to lose ourselves in books, TV, nature, studying and learning, or anything else. And some of us like to check out of reality altogether. And that's okay too. I get that the world can feel like a crazy place at times. And then there's the times when we need or want to help a family or friend cope with whatever it is they are going through too. Regardless of whether it be time out for yourself or for a family member or friend that you need to or want to help. What's really important to realize is that you can still be your best whilst doing so. And I say this because dealing with both the day-to-day and largely unpredictable challenges of life can both detract from the things that you want to do for yourself, which can quite easily lead you to feel bad about yourself. Not only in terms of the things you think you should be doing to be your best, including things like regular exercise, eating clean and getting enough sleep, but also in terms of what you have done. And by that I mean we all have our vices for coping with the stress and challenges of life in different ways. Whether it's not so positive food habits, alcohol, drugs, or anything else, many of the things we do to cope can also leave us feeling bad about ourselves. And sure, I get that. But if you're not where you want to be in your life right now, then what you have to be really careful of here is that you don't engage in self-criticism when you do reflect upon both your present situation or even your past, which is something far too many of us do. And this includes the nasty, harsh belittling, you're worthless, you're bad, you're no good type of criticism. This language may sound extreme, but if you were to actually write down, especially on a bad day, some of the things that you say to yourself, you would be surprised at both how nasty and how frequent it really can be. And especially so if you're someone who finds themselves comparing yourself and or your achievements to others. If this is the case, then you may need to let go of society's expectations, including keeping up with the Joneses. Remember that your journey is yours and yours alone. Yes, others may have or have done, this or that, but that's their journey, not yours. Whatever the source of self-criticism, we must remember that either way, nothing good comes from it. Instead, we must remind ourselves that everything that happens in life happens for a reason. And part of that reason is to become our best self. In fact, we cannot become our best self without all of the adversity and challenges which life throws at us, because this is when the most growth occurs. Everything is unfolding for us to be our best selves, and as such, there is a reason why you go through everything in life. So in reflection of your life, and especially of the periods in it when you may have felt as if you haven't been your best self, you shouldn't beat yourself up in consideration of what you did or didn't do, because there must have been a reason. It might have been that you needed this time out to grow. Something could have been occurring in your life that took your time and attention away from you. And that's okay. Remember also that being of service to others is also a way of being your best self too. Not only because you are helping others, but also because of the growth you experience from doing so. For example, let's say that you took 6 months off everything to help and support a loved one fight cancer. And in doing so, you faced your own mortality, which also made you question what you really want to do with your own life. And so it is important to look for the lessons that you have learnt during these so-called lull periods versus blaming yourself for not being your best. Every day we go through situations in which we can learn. Whether it's learning how to better treat people, growing to be more understanding, more forgiving, more respectful of others and self, or anything else. Each moment is an opportunity to choose to be good and to better yourself regardless of what your actions have been, of what you've done in the past. So remember to always look for the lessons in life, which is really essentially one big classroom. As long as you're learning, you are growing, and in doing so, bettering yourself as a person. And some of these lessons should include that not only does everything in life happen for a reason, but also that you are exactly where you need and should be today. Also that whilst it is important to be of service and to help others, you should always try your best to not neglect your own health and well-being in the process. Where possible, always ensure that you keep good physical and mental health so that you can be your best self and better serve others too. And so be firm and hold yourself accountable to always being the best version of yourself. But also at the same time, remember to be kind to yourself, to cut yourself some slack. Doing your best doesn't mean that you have to do everything perfect. Instead, it means that you've done it to the best of your ability at that time. And only you know yourself if you've really done so. As long as you always have the intention and strive to give 100% effort, then that's all that matters. Sure, your best today might not be anywhere near as good as your best tomorrow, and that's okay because your best changes along with how you change from moment to moment, which is never the same. Today you might be feeling energetic and on top of the world, but tomorrow you might be feeling physically drained and unenthusiastic. And that's fine because you're still giving your 100% and being your best. And that's all that matters. No more, no less. It's about your intention, not the outcome. By simply focusing on bettering yourself a little each day, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. So, do you always try to be your best? Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to learn more about the other essential attributes of staying in your best shape. And until next time, watch what you chew, do what you need to do, and always live true.